What is serviced accommodation? The best way to think about serviced accommodation is a hotel without staff. So it's a fully furnished rental property that either tourists or contractors will use to stay in for a short to long period of time. Now, why should you listen to me at all? Well, my name is Bradley Clark and I've acquired over the past sort of 4 to 5 years 52 serviced accommodation units and looking to acquire about 15 to 20 later on this year in 2025. Now, each property makes a profit of around 500 to 4,000 per month. Now, these figures might look a little bit far apart. The reason for that is because I've got a wide variety of properties from studio apartments, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 beds, and then bigger properties like 6 and 7 beds that can accommodate a lot of guests at one time. Now, a lot of my portfolio is based in the Midlands, but I've helped hundreds of people all over the UK acquire properties, speak to agents and landlords to be able to run properties as serviced accommodation. Now, do any of these sound a little bit familiar? Wanting to get started or grow your real estate portfolio without investing 30 to 50,000 up front. Maybe your current buy-to-let is not making as much money as it used to due to interest rates and general costs increasing. Maybe you've had a little bit of difficulty assessing the best locations to not only find a property that will make money, but also project accurate month-to-month profits. You're looking to have a new additional stream of income, but unable to commit to 10 to 15 hours per week to work on it. You could be being rejected or having difficulty with both landlords and estate agents to secure deals, or just simply not knowing where to start. Now, why SA and why did I choose SA? You don't have to own any property. I do a model called rent to serviced accommodation. This is where I rent a property from a landlord and then advertise it on a nightly basis. So there's no upfront costs for me. I didn't have to get a deposit together, show my earnings and save a lot of money, which will take a number of years. I can just rent a property and then start making cash straight away. Now, in terms of cash flow, it's a very, very high cash flow compared to buy-to-let especially. We're charging properties out on a nightly basis at anywhere from £50 up to £500 per night, whereas a standard buy-to-let is going to be a monthly amount coming in, which won't change. As I say, you don't need a huge amount to start. I started with a few thousand. I put things on credit cards, buy now, pay later, to get my deals set up as quickly as possible. There is an incredibly high demand for serviced accommodation, especially in city centres where you have a lot of contractors. That's people working in the area for a short to medium, long period of time, and they want a proper home and not to be living out of a hotel. You can do this model by having properties absolutely anywhere in the world. I mean, I'm actually now recording this video in Spain because all of my properties are self-managed in the UK. I'm actually looking to acquire a few properties over in the United States, and probably over the next few years we'll acquire some properties in Spain as well. Now, the increased demand year on year for Airbnb, Booking.com is unbelievable. I mean, just looking back at booking revenue on the left, you can see it's gone up billions and billions. There was a slight hiccup in 2020 due to COVID, but now things are back on track and again, just increasing year on year. Again, with Airbnb, year on year, just going up and up and up. So there's really no time like the present. It's increasing, it's getting better. So the sooner you can get involved, the more money you're going to make. Now, rent to SA versus buy to SA. So I predominantly focus in the rent to SA market. This is where, as I mentioned, you are renting a property from a landlord. You are paying them the rent every month, paying the bills and looking after that property. You are then going to go rent out that property on a nightly basis on websites like Airbnb, booking.com and many others, and you get to keep all that profit once you've paid the landlord their rent and you've paid the bills. This model means there's not a huge amount to start with. You don't need to buy a property, you don't need to have good earnings, and rarely you need to have particularly good credit. Whereas buying a property to run a serviced accommodation, you will need a little bit more money up front, but then you've got all the benefits of owning that property thereafter. So you've got the capital appreciation, meaning that the property is simply going up in value. You've got the opportunity to refinance. When that property goes up in value, you can pull more money out, tax-free, to then reinvest into more deals. Now, what I suggest a lot of people do is start with the rent to SA model, and once you've built up enough cash flow, then move in to the buy to SA model. So you've got a mixture of very good cash flow, but also owning assets that are cash flowing very well as well. Tourism versus contractor. Now, I think there's a massive misconception, as a lot of people think that when we talk about websites like Airbnb and booking.com, we're talking about holidaymakers. Now, I think that used to be the case probably 10 years ago, but now there's a lot of companies that have employees where they will house a lot of their contractors, a lot of their workers in Airbnbs because it's a lot more cost effective. So let me give you an example. I've got a 7-bedroom house in Coventry. It's a very, very large property with quite a good amount of beds. It can sleep about 20 people comfortably, not overcrowded, very comfortably, massive bedrooms, all en suites, family bathrooms that are spare, and a lot of room in there. So it can sleep 20 people. Now, if you put 20 people in a hotel, it's going to be a minimum of about £50 per night, probably per person. So that's £1,000. Now, if they stay in my property, I can charge them probably £400 to £500 per night. That's half of what they're going to be paying staying in a hotel. So it's much more cost effective just on that one point. But actually, then they've got their own kitchen, so they can cook their dinner. They've got 2 lounges. They've got a dining room. They've got a big garden. They've got plenty of parking out the front of the property and a garage where they can lock up all their tools every night. So it's more cost effective, and it's just generally a better stay for people. So there is a misconception that it's a lot of tourism staying in Airbnbs, but there is an incredible amount of contractor market as well. But having said that, both work really well for serviced accommodation. Now, here's an example of a 3-bedroom property being ran as rent to serviced accommodation. So renting the property from a landlord to then rent out on Airbnb and booking.com. So as you can see, a rental amount of £1,100 per month. Bills come in at about £375, so that's talking about our council tax, our gas, electric and water. Now the income, 150 over 23 nights, about 75% occupancy, equals 3,450 income. Take your income minus your expenses equals your nearly £2,000 worth of profit. Now, this might differ slightly depending on if you're managing it yourself or employing a management company, but we'll go on to that a little bit later. But I just want to illustrate that you can make per one property nearly £2,000 per month. So when you start to scale this, I'm sure you can imagine it adds up to a lot of money. Now let's bust some of the myths. Airbnb parties. I've been doing this business for a number of years, and I think I tell people I've had about 1.5 parties, which everyone gets a bit confused about. So I've had a party. Ultimately, these things do happen. It got shut down straight away. The people got kicked out of the property. There's lots of various different insurances, which I will talk about as well, and everything was covered and it was okay. The reason I say 1.5 is because we got notified of a party by one of the neighbours. We went round to the property, we closed it down straight away, and there was no issue. A lot of these myths and sort of negative news pass around a lot quicker than the positive. So a lot of people talk about Airbnb parties, but they tend to not really happen. And if they do, there's a lot of things you can have in place to sort of go against them, if that makes sense. A lot of agents and landlords being against this. Now, it's not for everyone, but you have to make sure you're explaining the benefits where you're looking after the property. There's going to be no void periods. It's a very safe deal for them, and that you're going to make money and that they're going to make money. There not being enough property. Simply not true. There is thousands of properties being built every week across the UK, and that there's definitely enough to go around. It's too saturated and there's not enough demand. There are a lot of people doing Airbnb, and a lot of people talk about Birmingham, for example, being saturated with Airbnb. I think the actual fact is there is a lot of Airbnb there, but there's also a lot of people staying in the Airbnbs. So that doesn't mean that it's too saturated. It means there's actually a demand in that area. And I think it's good that more people are getting into the business, because you have to do your Airbnb to a very good quality in a good area, spec'd well and priced correctly. And it pushes a lot of people out of the market that aren't doing it properly. Properties getting damaged. Now, there is wear and tear on properties. Now, a lot of people talk about places being heavily damaged. It very rarely happens. Good management companies have insurances. Good OTAs, online travel agents like Airbnb and Booking.com have good insurances, and you will have insurances yourself. Now, if anything were to get damaged, 99% of the time, the guest is charged for that damage. Now, when I'm talking about wear and tear, that happens all the time because you're going to have a good turnover of people in the property. So you might have a chair leg that's broken, or a bit of a stain on a sofa, and that is just a cost you are going to have to incur, but you can charge it back to the guest as well. And as I say, it very rarely happens. Ultimately, there will be a turnover of people, and it will be higher than a standard family rental, but it's going to be cleaned every time. There's going to be maintenance checked, and it's really not going to be a bother whatsoever. Now, relationships in SA, probably the most important slide that I'm going to talk about today. If I didn't have good relationships in my SA business, I wouldn't have built it. And not to sound too big-headed, but I think this is probably one of my best sort of qualities, especially in building what I built over the past few years. When you're talking to estate agents and landlords right from the start, they're going to remember that conversation. They're going to remember how you dressed, how you come across, how you spoke to them, how knowledgeable you were. So I've built up fantastic relationships with landlords where I've acquired a lot more property off them, because landlords have usually got more than one property, and often landlords know other landlords. So you can just keep going and building your portfolio that way. Estate agents always have more than one property for rent, so you can acquire another property as soon as you build up that relationship. I have relationships with furniture people where they're into properties when it's just being specced or where it's just been done up, and they'll get me in that way. I've got relationships with people that are in telecoms. So a guy from Virgin Media, I've got a very good relationship with him, and when he does the install for the internet, then he'll give me a call. And I've got relationships with a lot of other people within the property business, such as a carpet fitter. He's actually got a carpet business, and when he does flooring and things, he will notify people of what I do and then pass on the business to me. So there is a big opportunity when you build really good relationships doing this. Now, what is the goal? Building a sustainable service accommodation portfolio and making it as hands-off as possible with the right systems and process in place. Now, as I mentioned, I'm recording this in Spain. All my properties are based in the UK, and when we're talking about hands-off, I don't want to pretend that this is a go and sit on the beach, drink a cocktail, and that's all that's going to happen. You are going to have to put a little bit of work in at the start, but you're going to do everything right with all the right systems and processes, and it will become as hands-off as it can be. And you won't be wasting money and time on a property that isn't profitable. Finding a good property in the right area, the figures are going to stack. Now, with that in mind, there are 5 main steps in the process of your SA business. So, getting started with SA. Company setup. That's where we make sure that you have the right information when you're setting up your business. So the correct SIC code, that's SIC, for your particular business that you're running. We're going to talk about branding, where you're going to have some business cards, maybe some nice clothing with your business name, and how you're going to be coming across on social media, because people are going to take a look at your background and who you are. So if you do have things on a personal Instagram, it might be worth having a business one as well. Compliance, making sure you have the correct contracts in place for letting agents and for landlords directly. Last thing is accounting, making sure you've got a very good accountant in place that usually has a property background, so you can explain your business model and how it all works. Finding deals, where to source the best property, understanding the goldmine area and where it's going to work for serviced accommodation. What makes a good location and what to avoid. So usually city centres work very well. That's not to say though that, for example, in the UK, beach locations down by the coast don't work for the tourism market. And then also looking at what areas to avoid. So high crime areas, a property that is completely in the middle of nowhere and there's nothing around, and it might have nice views, but really, why would someone want to stay there? Understanding the market value of rent. So if you're running it as a rent to SA or a buy to SA, making sure that you've understood what the rent is going to be to make sure that deal is going to be continuously month on month profitable. And then again, how to project them figures by looking at various different websites to make sure the deal is going to stack up. Now, talking with estate agents and landlords, how to prep for the viewing. Make sure you know what that property is going to be able to achieve. Don't waste landlords and agents' time. You will start the relationship very badly and it won't often be turned around. As I say, when you start this, people are going to remember you from day one, how you come across, how you dress. So if you come across not very knowledgeable and you've wasted their time where you haven't explained what you're looking to do with the property, you'll ruin that relationship straight away. Knowing who is best to talk to. Make sure you're talking to the decision maker, whether that's a landlord directly and not maybe their son or their daughter that is just doing a viewing for them. Make sure you talk to the guy that's in charge or the girl that's in charge. And again, with estate agents, make sure you're talking to the person that's doing the viewing and is the decision maker, as opposed to maybe an admin person or just someone that is just taking phone calls. Understanding there's 2 massively different approaches. I mean, polar opposite. When you're talking to a landlord, you explain all the benefits and it being very hands-off for them. When you're talking to an estate agent, you're talking about the benefits that you're going to add, but they are still very much involved in the process. Knowing the importance of what not to say. Knowing what not to say is more important than what you do say. So there's lots of different words that we don't talk about when we're proposing this to estate agents and landlords. Just on the back of this as well, I don't think people realise how quickly this can be achieved. Now, I've got people I've worked with. There's a lad called Adam. He's about 20 years old, and within 5 weeks, he secured his first deal. He did a lot of work, in the early stages, and now it's going to pay off for years to come. There's another person that I've worked with actually in Coventry. He's got a very good, successful business, but he wanted something a bit more hands-off and some cash flow in the background. And his partner was looking to quit what they were doing. And they secured a deal, I think, in about 18 or 19 days. So incredibly quick. So with the right things in place, with the right processes, you can get on with this very quickly. Setting up the property, making sure the property is furnished to a very good standard. As I say, there is a little bit more competition these days, so it needs to be done very well. Photography is super important. You can't just use your phone anymore. You need a proper photographer that's going to showcase that property, because that's what's going to show up first on Airbnb, booking.com, whatever website you decide to advertise the property on. Safety, just being sensible. Make sure a property is safe and is compliant. No trip hazards. Make sure the fire exits are good. Make sure it's got smoke alarms, carbon monoxide sensors, things like that. And make it a home away from home. If you wouldn't go and stay in that property for a week, then it's not a good serviced accommodation unit. Employing a management company, probably one of the most important things within the business if you want this to be hands-off and you don't want to work it day to day. So some things to consider are the size of the management companies. Larger management companies tend not to have the best customer service because they're dealing with a lot of people at one time. Their current portfolio, if it's too big, as I say, you're just going to become another number within their business, and they're not going to be able to talk to you on the phone. Whereas with my management company, I can pick up the phone, talk to them straight away, any issues, resolve it, or if I'm looking to acquire more properties, get them to run some figures for me. Types of management companies to avoid, as I mentioned, ones that have got too many properties under their belt and cover too much of a wide area. So when you're trying to understand if your particular area is going to work, they're going to think about it very generically. So they're going to say, oh yes, well, for example, I don't know, London works really well because of this tourism, this contractor market, but they're just talking very generically, not specifically. Assessing their occupancy rate. Understand what are the properties they're managing and what other people are saying, and have a look on Airbnb and booking.com to see if the properties that they're managing are doing well. How to ensure their prices are competitive. Again, check people's diaries. Are the diaries on these platforms busy? And are they priced correctly? Or are they trying to charge a higher price to get more money for their client, but ultimately not getting the bookings? And then lastly, the benefits of using a management company. I could go on about this until I am blue in the face. I think a management company is so important because they make my life so easy. Again, I'm away on holiday at the moment, enjoying the sun, and my management company is doing everything for me back home, looking after the cleans, looking after all the guests, looking after all the maintenance, just taking care of the whole process. So I find a property, I set it up, I pass it to them, and I go again. Now, if you do everything I've mentioned properly, you will become one of the top Airbnb hosts and be very profitable, making a lot of money. If you would like help with this, click the link below in the description to watch a short video to see exactly how I can help you with this. If you do like the sound of it, then from there you can schedule a call. We can talk through a proper game plan tailored exactly to your situation, and then we can move you hopefully from where you are now to exactly where you want to be, whether that's making £2,000 a month extra, 5,000, 10, or even £20,000 a month. So click the link and we'll take it from there.